Well, it's been years in the making now. It started as over 60 bills that were brought up. And it was cut to 44. The National Assembly passed it to the state assemblies. Right now, only 35 have actually been assented to by the state assemblies, and it's hoping to, move on to the president for assent. But as you may have seen, something sticks out, and that is local government autonomy, both financial and administrative. A lot of people are wondering what really happened. And as you've seen, we have joining us on the program this morning, right here in our Lagos studio, Dr. Monday Ubani, who is the chairman, section of public interest and development of MBA Speedle. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program. We'll be getting to meet our guests in Abuja just in a moment. But let me start with you, Dr. Ubani. I mean, I haven't seen the background and the clamor for what people have termed, is it federalism? True federalism, even though some people say, is there anything called false federalism? With the latest, will I say, rejection now of this local government autonomy, something that a lot of people had thought that maybe we agreed on this, everyone was on the same page. Do you see maybe between the lines here? Why do you think that the state assemblies will actually reject something that a lot of people have said is critical to the success of our nation, governance particularly?
Thank you. You know, we have engaged in this patch method of amending our constitution, and some people have argued that this patch method may not take us too far. But we have indulged in it over the years. I think this is either the 6th or 7th amendment now. Now, it gives the State House of Assembly power to concur with whatever has been passed by both houses at the national level. Without their concurrence, you cannot amend the Constitution. And that is the provision of Section 9 of the 1999 Constitution. We were very happy that the National Assembly agreed with local government autonomy. The issue of the joint state account has been a honey pie for the governors. Yeah. They've been using it over the years to deprive development at the local government level. They forgot that the greatest empowerment we can do to Nigerians today is to ensure the basic provisions of infrastructure at the local government level.
But they will disagree with you on that.
Yes, I'm coming. I'm saying that the greatest empowerment is not wheelbarrow. It is not motorcycle. But the fact that you have good roads at the local government level, you have light, constant light. I may not want to go to UK to go and spend my holiday. I may prefer going to my village because there is constant light, there is road, and there is security. Now, you and I know today that Nigeria is not properly policed. There is no security in Nigeria today, and it starts from the local government level. As long as you have not empowered the local government chairmen, who are the chief security officers of the local government, to take care of the environment, we keep on having state of insecurity. So the governors have discovered that local government money is a honey pie. And they have taken Nigerians hostage from 1999 to date. And that is why there is no development going on at the local government level and Nigeria generally. And we thought with this National Assembly amendment that Nigeria will soon be out of the woods. And we were rejoicing, only for our joy to be killed by this rejection. Because the governors have taken over the State House of Assembly. And whatever they tell the governors to, the houses to do, that is what they do. And that is what has just happened. And I think we are here to enlighten Nigerians that we must not allow this. If you really want to develop Nigeria, we must allow development to begin to take place at the local government. You come from a local government, I come from one. I'm from Ikuano in Abia State. There is no major development that have been, or any infrastructure, key infrastructure, from 1999 to date. Meanwhile, millions or billions of naira have been allocated monthly, if you calculate cumulatively from 1999 to date, to local government. There is no development. I'm coming from a particular place now. The road leading to my estate is not, and I expect the local government to have done that. The same thing in my village, because of the fact that we don't have any person we can hold responsible with the local government money that comes every month. Allocation that comes in millions. And nothing is happening. They started first by not allowing democratic election at the local government level. I'm in court over that. Most of them now hurriedly after that court action organize fake election in which those men who were elected, are still regarded as transitional council chairmen, because the money that comes in does not get into their hand. The governors take them as source. I don't know whether you're aware of the story 2 days ago of a governor that used over 100 and something million to organize a welcome rally for the president in a state where the president comes from, Katsina. And what money did he use? Local government money. NFIU came up with a policy that they will not allow wrongful disbursement and utilization of local government. We were clapping for them. All of a sudden, I don't know whether those guys were compromised. EFCC do not do anything with the money that comes to local government every year. ICPC, and we've been crying, believing that with this autonomy, the local government chairman now can assert themselves and say, this money is belonging to my local government. Allow me to use it to develop my own environment. All of a sudden, we are missing another opportunity of using law to organize our society and organize our country. It's a lost opportunity.
But Mr. Obani, we seem to need robust conversations as far as the disposition of the Constitution is concerned about local government autonomy. Because the position of the governors is that the Constitution doesn't recognize them as an independent governing body at the third level, that they are appendages of the state government. You are a lawyer. Is that what the law says? Do we need more interpretations from the court?
Yes, the correct position today is that there is a provision, I think in Section 7, that says that the Constitution must ensure, or the government, state government, must ensure a democratically elected government local government council at the local government level. It's there in the Constitution. And before you can create a local government, it has to receive the concurrence of the National Assembly. So what more provision are we talking about? What we're trying to do now is that we have 3 tiers of government. We have the state, we have the local government, we have the federal. And the Constitution has given assigned responsibility to the local government. This issue of market stores, roads, even buying transformers and some of the electrification process is assigned to the local government.
Guaranteed under the Constitution?
It's there in the Constitution. They can do market stores, issue of burial, taking note of those who are born and those who die. It's local government responsibility. So what are they talking about? That there is no provision for them to exist independently. And now the Constitution made a mistake of creating what we call joint account. It is that joint account these people have used over the years now to hold the country down. And we're saying, let's now try to separate local government from the state government. Let them not be tied to their prompts. Let them remain independent in their financial disbursement. As the money comes, let them use the money now to develop the local government, which is what this particular amendment is all about. But they have rejected it.
So how material is the NFIU's victory against the governors at the court on this rejection as expressed by the National Assembly?
Now, the NFIU came up
by the governors, rather.
They came up with a policy, and then pronouncement, and even backed it up with a court action that the local government funds should be actually utilized by the local government, which was something that was really commendable, and we're very happy about it. But the NFIU have not gone further in ensuring that that money that comes to local government goes to them directly. The governors still interfere with the money, and then make the local government chairman to sign that they have received the money in full. That is one of the scam, in fact, the greatest scam that is being committed against Nigerian people is that the local government chairman will sign that they have received 1 naira. Whereas the money does not get to them. Rather, they are giving money to go and pay salaries of workers, and then they pay salary of local government chairmen and some of the officials, and give them a little for their security vote, and that is the end. The other money goes to the governor, who does whatever he wants to do at his whim and caprices. It's been on over the years.
Well, Dr. Bani,
yes,
pardon me, we need to go to Abuja now, but the money you talked about in that document flying around is actually over 500 million.
Yes,
and not
500 million, not even 100 million.
In the document that has been flying around, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians have seen that document. Well, let's go to Abuja now. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, Mr. Bani stated that Section 7(1) of the Constitution, which categorically states that the system of local government by democratically elected local government councils is under this Constitution guaranteed, and accordingly, the government of every state shall, subject to Section 8 of the Constitution, ensure their existence under law which provides for the establishment, structure, composition, finance, and functions of such councils. That is where we'll kick off here in Abuja. Uwemwoko joins us this morning. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria and the former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Akwa Ibom State. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Thanks for having me.
Well, Mr. Obani starts off with that part where he says, look, that is guaranteed. So upon that guarantee, how come it doesn't appear as though they recognize it as though, yes, it is indeed guaranteed? Because many think that local government in this country doesn't actually exist under a democracy. I mean, I think you are of the same view, aren't you?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain. Let me thank you for the opportunity to join in interrogating these subjects. The truth of the matter is that sometimes we prefer convenience in interpretation, not strictly what the law should say and what it should be. The question of Section 7 has been settled by the Supreme Court in a number of cases, including Attorney General of Abia State and Attorney General of the Federation. In the issue that had to do with the Electoral Act of 2001, what powers are given to the state governments as it relates to the local government structure? Section 7 is very clear on it. They are to exist subject to the law made, enacted by the State House of Assembly. You've just read it out. The structure, composition, and all that. Democratically elected. All that is clearly subject to what the State House of Assembly will make. And what that also means is that it is directly under the powers of the state government. Nigeria, I think if we do a little back, have recourse to the originating constitution that set up Nigeria as a country, 1960, 1963, Republican Constitution. What did he say about the creation of local governments? Local governments have always been clearly under the control of the state governments. Nigeria operates a two-tier federal system, not a three-tier federal system. This incursion and encroachment into the powers of the state government in managing local governments were military distortions of our federal system. If you go back to the 1960 Constitution, 1963 Constitution, you will not find this. It was when the military started creating local governments for friends and colleagues and people here and there, so that instead of allowing the state government to create local government, the military now created a situation where they were now the one creating local governments.
Does that invalidate the functions of the local governments?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because already there is the doctrine of existing law has captured everybody down in. But the point I'm making is this. The incursion of federal powers, encroachment into the management of local government started with the military administrations. That is why you have, for instance, go to Kano. How many local governments does Kano have? About 48. How many local governments does Lagos State have? Less than 20, I think. But when you check the population of Lagos and that of Kano State, you see the marked difference. But it was supposed to be based on population, based on land mass, that you create these local governments. Now, coming back to this issue of control, so that I don't take too much of time analyzing what ought to be. The two tiers of government in Nigeria are the federal and the states. Section 7 and Section 8 make it very clear that the local government will exist subject to the powers and the laws made by the State House of Assembly. And so this idea of saying, oh, the local government should now come and be taking money directly from the federal is completely at variance with the intent of the Constitution itself. And so I was Attorney General, and we had these issues. By the time we are the same people that will argue, no, you cannot stay at Abuja and know what happens in the local government and interior communities. You cannot stay in Abuja and manage the security situation in the various local governments in the country. Why? Because we are saying that it is better for the state government and the local governments to understand the local dynamics that influence certain activities that lead to certain crimes management in their local communities. Because in every crime, there is a local content. So when we say that the federal government cannot stay in Abuja and manage security in various local governments in the country, why do we now say that the federal government should stay down in Abuja and assign money to the states and to the local governments under the states?
Is that what that is intended to do? Because they thought that it was supposed to ensure that local governments have their own funds directly because they have specific functions that the law outlines that they carry out.
That is what I'm saying. It's a major distortion. The local governments were not supposed to operate without input from the state. At the time that the makers of this military originated constitution came to make it, they are the ones that created the distortion, trying to give these powers and existential provisions to local governments. Whereas these are things that should have been assigned to them by the state government under Section 7 and Section 8.
So if you could explain, shed a little more light on what you describe as input, because the local government chairmen are also democratically elected.
Under the laws made by the state government.
Under the laws made by the state government.
Yes.
So their functions are guaranteed. So how do you then, what is the limit? What is the extent of the input that you describe?
You see, that's the point. That's the point. Let us get to the bottom and move up. The point is this: should the Constitution have given these responsibilities on its own to the local governments and then come out at Section 7 and say the state government will exhaust their existence? It should have been. The functions of the local government should have been created and given to them by the laws made by the state government. But because certain persons wanted to just create some level of patronage for themselves somewhere along the line, that is why you have this lack of cohesion between Section 7 and 8 and then the schedules in the Constitution that tends to give these powers and responsibilities to the local government. It is their business. But before they have this, it should have come under the laws made by the state government. If you have already stood in Abuja under the Constitution and assigned responsibilities to local governments, what is the law that the State House of Assembly is supposed to make for their existence?
So when you say it should have and it didn't, can the local government then say, well, since it didn't, we can do certain things? That's on the one hand. But secondly, if it's supposed to be based on input from the states, these days, I mean, Mr. Bani did speak to some of those saying, look, these days there is little or nothing for the local government to do.
It's a very simple thing. The problem we are facing is because we are not running an ideal democracy. If we were running an ideal democracy where elections are conducted and the results of the elections matter, every state government would have sat up. I'm not trying to absolve the state government from what Mr. Bani said. Truly, there are infractions. There are encroachments on the powers and responsibilities of the local government. Their monies are not really getting to them in so many of the states, but not in all. But even then, the point that needs to be made is this: if the local governments were to have these laws as these responsibilities assigned to them, and the state governments don't give them the free hand to do it, every state governor that goes for the next election would have known that the state government, the local government, have the powers to mobilize their voters against that state government. That state governor will lose the election. And he would have now put the state governors in check. And they don't abuse the powers that they're abusing now.
Isn't there something fundamentally wrong? When you say that the local governments, yes, though they're elected, but they had to carry out their functions based on the laws made by, the State House of Assembly and input by the state governments in their respective states.
Yeah.
Doesn't that, to a large extent, take away the essence of electing local government chairmen who are supposed to be directly responsible to the people that elected them?
No, it doesn't. Very simple. If these responsibilities were given to them by the laws made by the House of Assembly, all the lines, and it wouldn't have been a general thing. it wouldn't have been a national issue. Each state would have known the kind of laws that will make that fit its purpose based on its own understanding of its local dynamics. So it doesn't need to be that, oh, in all the local governments in the country, the same line of responsibilities. In all the local governments in the country, the same line of power. No. It's supposed to be a local thing because the state governments know more about the problems of each locality that make up the local government.
Even though the local government is supposed to be closer to the people.
That is the truth. The local government is closer to the people, but the local government also takes power from the states. It should not take power from the federal. We are looking at a two-tier federal system, not a three-tier federal system.
At what point does it take power from the federal government?
My friend Obani has just mentioned. You go to the federal government when you I
NFIU?
can't get it offhand. No. Get to the powers assigned to local governments under the schedule. The local government can create motor parks. Local government can take taxes from non-automotive vehicles like wheelbarrows, pushable trucks, and all that. Nothing that is motorized in any manner. Then they are responsible for registration of births and deaths, management of.
Those are functions outlined in the law.
Yes, in the Constitution itself.
So is that the federal government? Is that what you mean by federal government?
Federal government, no. What I'm saying is that federal government sat down under the Constitution and assigned these rules to the local government. These ought to have been things that were assigned to the local governments by the laws made by the State House of Assembly. So you go to various states now, like when I was Attorney General, you have several cases between the state government and local government as to who registers something for what.
Okay.
Running a motor park, who is signages, and some local governments have problems because some local governments are headquarters, are state capitals. Some local governments are, maybe like you have 4 or 5 local governments that make up a state capital. So those local governments are in perpetual conflict with the state government as to the level who collect taxes.
Let me take it back to Mr. Bani. I mean, Mr. Bani, Section 7, yes, on the one hand. But when you look at Section 1626, where it states that the state shall then have this joint local government account for the purpose of payment of all allocations to the local government councils of the state from the federal accounts and from the government of the state. So, and then if you look at 1627, the same thing. Isn't that contradiction on the part of our laws that gives a lot of leeway to the states to go on the way they are?
I don't think there is any contradiction whatsoever. When we intervene on national issues, we should be able to help the nation to be moved forward. That is what we're supposed to be doing. We should not in any way in our intervention retard the growth of this nation. If you remember in 1999, when there was a semblance autonomy for local government, I'm a witness. I come from a local government called Ikuano. There was a local government chairman that time called K.C. Ubaja. He was working as a local government chairman under Ojuzo Kano's administration. I remember that government of K.C. distributed transformers, dug boreholes in some of the local government, villages in my local government. Even issue of electrification, there was issue of distribution of poles and wire for them to electrify the rural areas. Because at that time, the money that the federal government in their wisdom, those who enacted 1999 Constitution made a provision that money should go to local government. But the only mistake that was made was that money enters into a joint account. And let me tell you why that joint account was created. It was for the purpose of the state government to even bring their own portion, because local government is under them, to bring their own portion of the money to put in that account in order to ensure that local government have enough fund, because grassroots development is very key if you look at that Constitution. So we are talking about what 1999 Constitution provide. If 1999 Constitution has now given a role to local government, how can you now say that you're operating only a second tier? The same Constitution has given a role. The same Constitution said money should go to them directly, but the only thing is that it must enter into a joint account, whereby the government, is a state government, should now bring their own portion. Look at it, there in the provision. But what the government have been, state government have been doing is that they will now take the one that came from the federal government and now utilize it at their whim and cap prices, to their fancy, and not developing the local government. And as I said earlier, the little development that took place in local government administration was 1999 when Obasanjo was in power. There was not much interference. You know what the governors discovered? They now discovered that they will not even ensure that democratically elected government. They now start appointing transitional council chairman, or what you call caretaker. And immediately they start appointing the caretaker who appoints it, when you appoint somebody, you detect the tone. And whatever money that comes, they now interfere with it, and they were not giving it to them directly. That has been what has happened over the years, that there is no single development in any local government today in Nigeria, except some state governors that have this good intention for the people. Somebody like Godswill Akpabio, who was once a governor of Akwa Ibom. If you see what he has done all over in the local government, all over the state. Today, Akwa Ibom is one of the most developed states in Nigeria today. You go to Rivers State, where Wike is holding sway today. Wike is developing almost all the local government, road construction going on. It's only few governors that can utilize that money in order to develop local government. Other governors, it's only few of them that are doing it, using that money to develop local government. We are saying, what do we do in the circumstance when the constitution has made a provision for money going directly to the local government and it's not getting to them? That is why the National Assembly now say, okay, let us give them financial autonomy, so that they can use that money, so that we now can hold them responsible. How can somebody be talking about second tier when we are saying that the governors are not allowing money that is going to local government to be utilized, and we are not experiencing development? And we are talking about 1960 Constitution. What does 1999 Constitution provide?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yes,
what
sir.
the 1999 Constitution provides and how the governors are perhaps going against that, because he has spoken about what ought to be. In fact, he says that it shouldn't be the federal government. I'll be telling the local governments what to do. It should come from the state government. Ought to be, but apparently that is not what is. So the Constitution clearly states that the system of local government by democratically elected local government councils is under this Constitution guaranteed. Does that imply that we have three-tiered government?
My take is that if the Constitution itself has even assigned a role, a specific role to a tier of government, it then means that it recognizes its existence.
So we operate three tiers?
3 tiers, because it says the issue of market store, he mentioned it, issue of even street light, road construction, market stores, registration of birth and death. It's local government that does that. So if the Constitution has said that this is your responsibility, can you now deny the existence of that tier? It says democratically elected. Now, as I said earlier, they start interfering by appointing caretaker. That is where the aberration started and has continued over time. We as a country will look back, 1999, when there was a semblance of operational autonomy for local government, saw the level of the small development that took place until the governors, as I said earlier, discovered that, oh, we cannot allow this. Let's start appointing TCs, what you call transitional, council chairman. And since that time to date, they have never allowed local government to operate properly. You can't hold the local government chairman responsible. You can't hold the governors, because the governor will tell you, look at it, he has signed receiving that money. The chairman, if you go to them, they say, my brother, I did not receive that money. So who are you going to hold responsible? So that is what the National Assembly, in their wisdom, I said, look, gentlemen, let's correct this particular problem by enacting a law granting them autonomy.
Right.
And having granted them, why would the governors now through the back door? So the governors are the cog in the wheel of progress. My Attorney General, my good friend, I saw him in Abuja just recently. We lodge in the same hall. He's my good friend. But they are the ones misadvising these governors. And that's why the country is not making progress. Can we move Nigeria forward, please?
The section that wanted to be, inserted in this, constitutional amendments, the 6 parts, was saying that any amount standing to the credit of the states and local government councils and federation account shall be distributed amongst the state and local government councils on such terms and in such manner as may be prescribed by an act of the National Assembly.
Beautiful.
That was what was meant to be included, but then it was struck out. And I think that goes to the point that he was trying to make, that should it be the National Assembly, or at least the federal level, that dictates to the local government when the state is actually closer to the local government? And he gave the example of security, where a lot of people are clamoring for state police, saying that the federal police is not working because they are not as close to the people in some sense as the state or the local government. So in line with the clamor for state police, don't you think this also makes sense? Perhaps that's the reason that they saw and thought this might not work?
Yeah, you see, we are talking about what the law itself has provided in the 1999 Constitution. Enekedi Bey says that since men have learned, the birds have learned to fly without patching. Men also have learned to, to
shoot without
missing. We have discovered over time that the state governors are not allowing this fund that goes to state government to get to them so that they can utilize it to develop the local government. And there is nothing wrong in now saying, can we enact a law to help the local government administer local government effectively? Because we know if we miss it at that local government level, it will affect the federal government. Let me just tell you today, gentlemen, what is happening today in terms of insecurity,
And
just
lady,
hear me. What is happening today in terms of insecurity is that the local government chairmen that are supposed to be a chief security officer are not in charge of their local government. If my local government Ikuano is properly policed, if your own local government is properly policed, 77 and 774 or 773 minus Bakassi is well policed by the local government chairman, do you think there will be security in Nigeria today? That will not be. We are saying, can't we now allow governance at that local level, at that grassroots level, to be effectively governed so that we can begin to enjoy? The greatest mobilization, the greatest empowerment you can do today in Nigeria is to develop basic infrastructure. The moment a road passes through this particular bush part, all of a sudden the prices of those land goes up. If there is light now, every part in that environment goes up. So we are saying, can we allow local government now to begin to develop our roads, electrify the environment, and people will relocate. My church members in Ikeja relocated to Akwa Ibom when Governor Akpabio was the governor because of economic development that was taking place, and they have not come back up to now. You know why? Because of the economic activity that has been generated by the development of basic infrastructures. And it is something we should experiment. It's something we should go along with. Because roads and lights bring development. And there are no roads in the villages. There are no lights. And that's why people are all clamoring coming to the urban areas. I'm saying, can we suggest something that is practical to move Nigeria forward? And not about legalistic, this is what the 60 Constitution provided. There are only 2 tiers. We are talking about 3 tiers now that can bring governance to the grassroots. Government now says, give them their money to do their responsibility. What is wrong with that?
So if this portion quoted by Kade is what is the gray area that is stirring debate, National Assembly members are legislators who also represent constituencies.
And they came from local government.
They come from local government. Shouldn't they have, raised an amendment to this effect that will bring clarity and end the ambivalence?
You see, as I said earlier, I started my statement by this issue of patch. Some people are clamoring that we should have a brand new constitution where members of this, citizens will participate in giving ourselves a brand new constitution. But the moment we keep on patching, amending, we may not get a perfect constitution because it doesn't come from the people. This is a military constitution, remember, with all the flaws. But with the flaws, we can still operate it the way it is and still achieve a result. But my only problem is that we have never allowed it even to operate. The law says you must ensure democratically elected government, local government council. Have they allowed even that to? I had to go to court. Most of the state governors that hurriedly went and organized, very horrible, election that is not an election, it was because we took them to court. My state government was joined. Several states were joined. They hurriedly went and organized an election that was not an election. Why? Because they used their state independent electoral commission also to organize what was called a sham election. Whereas if it is INEC that may have probably participated, it would have been a bit fairer and better. So I'm saying...
We're billed to go to Abuja in a moment. But just before that, Barrister Obani, you said something instructive earlier, that the NFIU victory secured at the court has not been followed up, with a clearer decision to ensure that the local governments now have direct access to their accounts.
Yes.
What option is open to the NFIU and by extension the federal government to do that?
NFIU should monitor the money that goes to local government every month. This money that comes, local government chairman, where is it? Which account is it? Because they were now supposed to go and withdraw certain amount. Exceeding certain amount, they will know. So where is the money? That is the only way. EFCC, all the ICPCs, follow this money to the grassroots. This money that has come to local government chairman, Mr. Man, where is the money? What have you utilized it to, within that month and all that? Nobody, follows up. We can't develop a nation like this. I'm saying that we can do these things. These things are possible. The abroad that we go to is because these guys are using their money to develop their basic infrastructure. And that's why everyone is jackpot. All our young ones are moving because the environment is not conducive. Can't we think and redo and reject Nigeria and rebuild Nigeria? And it's possible.
You know, it's quite sad when the laws that are meant to be made to develop people now looks like those laws are the ones impeding development. But let's go to Abuja. Quite a number of issues to raise. It's back to you, Chamberlain.
Oh, yes, it is, Mr. Nwoko. I mean, you heard your colleague there. Are you one of those advising these governors not to do the right thing and abuse the laws?
Dr. Bani knows, me and him, we have discussed this formally and informally. And I keep on telling him, he is one of the advocates of true federalism in Nigeria. He would argue viciously, very vehemently for power devolution. We want to have an ideal federalism. We want to have a federalism that works and shows it in practical terms. At the same time, when it is not convenient for us, we say, no, let's change the dynamics. If we want to have an ideal federalism, it must be on all strata, on all issues. If you want to make it work, as I tell people today, the problem is not the law per se. The problem is the implementation. This section 162 and 262 that we are talking about, all those sections that have to do with particularly creating this joint account. The problem is not that section. The problem is the implementation of that section. Like my brother has rightly said, even the state governments are supposed to bring their own internally generated revenue, some portion of it, and add to the joint accounts money before it is shared to the various local governments as they come. But it is not done. So the problem is not that section of the law. The problem is implementation. And how do we change to ensure that it is complied with?
No, I think what he's saying is that there's an abuse by the governors hiding under...
It's implementation. It is not the section.
No, there are two different things. Implementation and abuse.
No, what I'm saying is the abuse arises from improper implementation. If that section was to be applied the way it is, it doesn't require too much English to know that when the money comes in, I was a member of the joint accounts for years. For the 6 years I stayed as Attorney General. You have the Commissioner for Finance, you have a Commissioner for Local Government, you have a Accountant General of the Federation of the States that sits down. Or when the money comes in, if it were to be as the money comes in, oh, local government, A, this your money, B, C, take your money down. From internally generated revenue, this is what we have brought in. And everybody takes home. There would have been no problem.
Isn't that what the government is trying to address when you now say they are interfering?
No, that's the problem. We cannot, because the section is wrongly implemented, we now change what ought to be a federation.
So how do we address this challenge?
Well, how do we address this challenge is to set up a system that will regulate itself. We should set up a system where if a governor encroaches on the monies of the local government, he should fail the next election.
How?
Yes, because it is people. What are we using as campaigns today? You are not doing this well. You are not doing this well. You are not doing this well. It's the same thing that the opposition party is using to argue against the federal government. It's the same thing that the opposition parties are arguing against the state government. If we have an ideal system, all this, the law will not ordinarily have posed any problem. But as it is now, the governors are able to do what they are doing. Let me just give a little story. In about 2001, 2002, I was newly in Akwa Ibom State at that time, and I took 2 pages of newspaper to challenge the state government gradual encroachment on these funds of the local government. It started little by little, Then it got to a point where in some states, the local government don't even see what is coming to them again. Okay. But the problem, the solution to it is not to now further constrict the federal system that we are operating.
We'll talk
by making the federal government be in control of
We'll talk a little bit more about that solution as we come back in a few minutes, and then just wrap up in a few minutes as well. Join us again. welcome back. Our concluding moments now on this matter here in Abuja. Mr. Oko, when you say that one of the ways to cure this is to vote them out, many will say, look, we know better how our system works here. As much as we try to make it perfect, that will lead to even further abuse. They will say, well, don't worry. No, they will not vote me out because of this, because look at how difficult it is to recall one person from National Assembly. If it's that difficult just to recall one person, even though I say it's really difficult, how much more for a governor who has all the paraphernalia of office? How is it going to be possible to do that? So that's why the government thinks, look, put in place this law. If that law is there, they know if there's an infraction, you face the music, as opposed to waiting for 4 years. Are we supposed to allow them violate the laws for 4 years?
Chamberlain, we cannot solve one problem by creating another. Part of the major problem, and everybody has agreed, of the Nigeria's underdevelopment is constricting our federation. If we want to have an ideal federation and development that will spread across this country, we must take the bull by the horn and follow it up to the letter. It may not work out overnight. Today, we are expecting a more transparent, more credible election from INEC, because we are looking at the structures that have been put in place, the infrastructure, including the waivers and all that. I believe that these are things that we can achieve. It may not be overnight, but it will be wrong for us because we have an immediate problem. And maybe something is pressing us on the leg. Then we now decide to amputate that leg. What we are trying to do is creating a problem that will be more difficult to solve tomorrow.
One more thing before we go. So when Mr. Bani now says, because you think that you are of the opinion that we have 2 tiers of government, but he says it can't be 2 because the law recognizes the local government area. So to that extent, they are 3 and not 2.
No, there are 2. The law, the constitution itself that creates that structure recognizes the state. When you go to when you get into the executive powers, legislative powers, judicial powers, nothing is mentioned about local governments. You check through from Section 4, Section 5, Section 6,
does that invalidate Section 7 that guarantees the democratic elections?
Section 7 says subject to Section 8. The local government will exist subject to the laws made by the State House of Assembly. And that settles it.
Irrespective of the functions outlined for them in the laws?
The functions that are outlined for them will come under the powers given to them by the State House of Assembly. They cannot exist without the laws made by the State. They cannot function. Everything that is done. That's why Section 7 says the state government would ensure their existence under a law made by the State House of Assembly.
But by reason of them being elected, they already exist, don't they?
No, they exist. Yes, who elects them? That is why local government elections are conducted under the Akisek, like in Akwa Ibom, let me use Akwa Ibom State, Akisek law. Akisek law is made by the State House of Assembly. So the election is not conducted by National Assembly. That is why on the 2020, the 2001 Electoral Act was cut down by half by the Supreme Court, because that act now made provision for conduct of election into local governments. And the Supreme Court said, no, INEC cannot conduct election or have any way to monitor election into local government except under procedure. So several provisions were nullified. And that is why only the state government can make law that conducts election into the local governments.
If the states have all these powers, how come the creation of local government, now LCDs in Lagos, was inchoate?
Yeah,
because when it says they don't have all the powers.
Yes, because that's a part of the military problem. When the constitution was enacted, the constitution specifically named all the local governments in the constitution and called it 774.
All right.
And so you cannot add one local government to that without amending the constitution.
All right, Mr.
It was a wrong thing to do.
Mr. Wemoko is a senior advocate of Nigeria and the former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Akwa Ibom. So thank you for your time again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Go ahead, guys.
Well, Dr. Bani, let's wind down now. I know we can go on and on about whether it's 2 or 3-tier government and all of that. But yes, I know you might want to speak to that. But on a final note as well, so we have states that say, well, we don't mind having this autonomy, really. I mean, no big deal.
16 of them.
You know, I mean, there are reports that there's 16 of them, and others say clearly we don't. Maybe we also should look for some sort of amendment that says the ones that want it, you can have it. And the ones that don't, you can't have it. Maybe that's utopian, but I mean, what do you think about that?
I think that there are 9 states now standing that have not submitted their own input So I want to use this national television to appeal to their conscience, because 16 have already voted in favor. So if you add 9 to 16, that would be 25, passing that threshold of
Assuming
20.
that all of them
will. It's my plea. And that's why I'm using this national tele to plead with them. Taraba is there, Plateau is there, and I think Oyo is there and all that. Let the State House of Assembly really help Nigeria, because we will not experience any development if we remain with this issue of interference with local government fund by the governors. Please, let them agree to that financial autonomy. 9 plus 16 will make 25, and that gives them the threshold for that particular law, to be passed, so that we can have the president assent. Let's begin to be more proactive in our legislative process to help this nation. And I think that this is one of the ways to really help development. Let's accelerate development. If there is development in local government, it's the greatest empowerment.
And if they vote against,
yes,
does it foreclose this debate?
If they vote against, it doesn't. Because we keep on patching the constitution until we have a constitution that is made by the people.
Even
I know that the next National Assembly may come up with constitutional amendment. Because when problems occur with the ones we operate in, then it gives us an impetus to say, okay, what do we do in order to correct the system, which what we have done with the Electoral Act.
So we're looking at a possible fifth alteration. But we have to thank you so much, even though I know you think that a new constitution is what we need altogether.
My state has a small problem.
Constitution.
Yes. My state, yesterday, the PDP's candidate died. And then they have an opportunity now, PDP, to probably replace within 14 days, as prescribed by Section 33 of the Constitution.
So how does that replacement work? Just quickly.
They have to organize a fresh primary election. That's what the law says, and present a fresh candidate. It's not Section 34 that will be applicable now, because countermanding means the process is about to start. Then you now countermand, in which case, again, 14 days, to organize another election. But this one is that the election of governors are taking place in March, and this date occurs in January. So you have 14 days to organize a fresh primary and replace, and then INEC now will now publish a new name. That is what I think will happen in this circumstance. It's a sad news for PDP, and then we condole the family for that loss.
Indeed. I would like to thank you so much. Dr. Monday Obani is the chairman, SPIDO, that's section of public interest and development at the NBA. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
We'll go to break now. I will return. Remember the front pages and the big stories regarding politics. That's our big story next. Stay with us.